So we're in your government book now, and we're in chapter 5. We are going to be talking about Congress, the legislative branch. The legislative branch is in our Constitution in Article 1, Sections 1 through 9, and Amendments 16, 17, 20, and 27 all have to do with the legislative branch of government and the lawmaking branch of government. So let's read here what basically William Blackstone says. Upon these two foundations, the law of nature and the law of revelation, the Bible, depend all human laws. That is to say, no human law should be suffered to contradict these. So, on to David Noble, what he says: government exists not so much to create laws as to secure laws, to apply God's law to general and specific situations, and to act as the impartial enforcer of such laws. So you can see by both these quotes here, as the foundation of our Constitution, so is the foundation of law from the Bible. And the law in the Bible, talking about, first of all, the natural law, the law of nature, and it's presented in the Bible, and also the law of revelation in the Bible are in our laws, in our moral laws. And so now we should have no human laws that contradict anything that have to do with the Bible. And so that was William Blackstone. But also that our government exists to create and secure laws, but we have to apply God's laws. God's general law, that's general law of nature, general laws of conscience, and also specific situations of law that bring forth from the Bible, and to act as impartial enforcer of such laws. So basically, laws have to do with the fundamentals of the Bible. Without the foundation of the Bible, can we really have laws? Can we really have laws of conscience and specific? According to the Constitution, no. So although today, now that we're saying there's no real absolutes, and we're being taught this, that there's no real laws, then we don't really have the boundaries of a Constitution at all, do we? So let's talk about Congress now. We're going to go over the structure of Congress, which is in Article 1, the first article of the Constitution, and the procedures within the Congress, which is Article 1. All of Article 1 has to do with Congress. And so then we'll have the responsibilities of Congress in Section 8, and the powers of Congress. These are all in Article 1, and we're going to go over just one of these at a time. We're going to first start on the structure of Congress. America's limited government is our greatest blessing. So we have, because of our founding fathers have set 3 branches of government, as we went over: the legislative or lawmaking branch, which is in Congress, and then we have the executive branch, which is our president and our vice president and the president's advisors, and we have the judicial, the judges, the Supreme Court. Those are our 3 branches, and so we're going to focus on the legislative branch, which is Congress. So starting here in the beginning here, we're going to talk about the structure of Congress. Article 1. Article 1 is about Congress, like I said, but we're going to go over sections 1 through 3 that talks about basically what is Congress and how it exists, and how is it put together, I should say. So they're congressional houses, they call them. 2 houses. We have 2 houses of government, which means bicameral, right? Means 2 houses. We have the congressional houses check on each other as well as checking on the other branches. But we have 2 houses. One, the upper house, always considered the upper house is going to be the Senate. And basically the senators are from each state. We have 2 senators. The lower branch, of course, is going to be the House of Representatives, and it's based on population. So we have more, each state has more. If you have more of a population, you're going to have more representatives. And we call representatives congressmen or congresswomen, but they're of the House of Representatives. So, and these basically, they check on each other, the Senate and the House, and they also craft laws and they make laws on the interests of people and states. And all members are considered congressmen or congresswomen, but of course we have the Senate, and we call them senators. So going back to this bicameralism you see here, bicameralism, sounds kind of weird, cameralism, but bicameralism basically means that you're going to have two legislators. You're going to have two different houses. If we said unicameralism, we'd say one house, and most countries just have one house that make the laws. But our country has two houses. Under the Articles of the Confederation, before the Constitution, we only had one house. It was unicameral, and we didn't have an executive branch, we didn't have a president, we didn't have judicial branch. All we had was a lawmaking Articles of the Confederation, and that's why the Articles of Confederation were not really adequate in the point of preserving our nation and checking on our nation as for checks and balances. So in Great Britain, they have a bicameral one house, but most countries have one house, and so did the Articles, until the Constitution now had formed the forming of the two houses, well, actually three branches of government, and the two houses in our Congress of lawmaking processes are two different houses. So let's talk about the houses. I'm going to the next page here if I can. Okay. So here's a picture of the House of Representatives. Here you can see there's a lot of 435. We'll go over 435. Yeah, I was right. So we have the framers of the Constitution. So let's talk about, first of all, the houses. We're going to talk first about the lower house, is the House of Representatives. And as you can see, there are 435 members, and each of these members are from a certain district. So when you go and vote, you're voting for your district representative that's in the House. They're elected for 2 years, and that they have an election every 2 years in November, of course. And then on to the boundaries of these different districts that they come from are by population, and the representative is very proportional. So as population changes, so do the districts, and so do the districts within the state, depending on the population. So how does this happen with appropriation, and how do they figure this out? And we're going to find more about this here. So let's go on to the next. I'll come back here to this little article here on the on Bibles. It's a really cool article, but let's keep on with the House of Representatives. So apportionment. You know what apportionment is. First of all, because the House members represent a particular population group, we say that their representation is proportional. And proportional distribution of congressional seats among states is called apportionment. So apportionment, of course, is proportional. So when they want to make seats, put the seats together, and those from certain states and districts, those congressmen, they have to apportion it. So because the representative in the House is based on population, it is necessary to count the number of people within each state periodically so they can reapportion it. This is done by taking a census. So what's a census? You heard about the census they took in Jesus' time, right? Well, a census is a counting of the number of people in a specific area. So they do this so they know how many congressmen need to become from this part or this state or this district. So it says the first was taken in 1790, the first census, and then now it's taken from each year. Let's go up here. I'll show each year. Here's some pictures of apportionment in the House of Seats, and this is 2010, as you see at the top here. And each year ending with a 0, they take a census. So 1800, 1810, 1820, all the way up to what? 2020. And so each representative is to represent no fewer than 30,000 people, although each state is entitled to at least one representative regardless of population. So as you see here, we have the states, the apportionment. And we can say here, if we look in California, we have 53 districts. If we go to Oregon, there's only 5 districts. Alaska only has 1 district. Texas has 36. New York has 27 districts. So you can see how the census, how many people, how many districts they have. Today, the racial representative population is about 1 to 700,000. So today, that's the representative today because of the amount of people we have. So let's go on to the first Congress here. So this tells, we can look here at basically the apportionment. I'm going to go over the Mace too, but we're going to do that at the end too. This is pretty neat thing that they do with the Mace. It's going to gives power to them or whatever, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So in the first Congress, there were 65 representatives in our first Congress in the House. In 1920, there were 435 members of the Congress, 435. So it started getting bigger and bigger. So in 1912, they feared that the House of Representatives was going to get too large, that they wouldn't be able to even conduct business. They'd have so many people in there. So in 1929, they limited now to 435 members in the House. So after every census, the congressional seats are reapportioned, like I said before, and each state gains or loses some seats, or sometimes they stay the same. They redraw the boundaries because of apportionment. And so, like Florida's population increased, so 2 more seats in Congress. So they redrew Florida and gave them 2 more districts, but then they again had to basically reapportion that from another state, So let's go on to the next one. I want to show you a picture here. This is pretty cool too. Gerrymandering. Here's a picture of the gerrymandering in 1812. This is a political cartoon. So what is gerrymandering? So let's talk about this. So gerrymandering is where the states, let's go up that picture, that's good, where the state legislator draws districts to purposely favor the party in power. So they thought, maybe we can change our districts so that we can give one party more favor. So a guy in Massachusetts in 1812, Governor Elbridge Gerry, his name, divided the state and the districts into a peculiar shape to favor a party. So they called it gerrymandering because his division of states here, the way he put his districts, the districts looked like a salamander. So they called it gerrymander. So here's a picture of a gerrymander. So now gerrymander means that basically the state then is trying to position their districts for a particular reason in a particular party. So it's not a good thing to do. So you can see how he did look like a dragon there. So that's called gerrymandering, like a salamander. So let's talk about the Senate now. Well, back to the House a little bit. The House was called the People's House, and it's most likely was to reflect the interests of the American people because it went by population. And all of the representatives in the beginning were directly elected, and still are elected by the populations and the wishes of the people. So this made the House of Representatives more sensitive to the people's needs. The Senate, on the other hand, in the beginning was not elected by the people, but actually by the state. by the state governments and themselves. So not until later on, to the 17th Amendment was this changed, and now, of course, our senators are elected. We vote for our senators now. But prior to 1913, they didn't vote for senators. And so now it seems, the states, that people have more say in the Senate than they did prior to that, as the Senate reflected the needs of each state government. So the Senate, let's talk about the Senate. The Senate is the upper house, and it is equal partner to the House of Representatives. They're equal, and it reflects the interest. It's supposed to reflect the interest of the states. And today it does, but in many ways it also reflects the interests of the people too. So Dirksen, Office of the Senate, said the Senate is the living symbol of our union of states. So it's the smaller and more selective. We select senators that have more qualifications a lot of times than the House. Not necessarily, but many do. And they're usually extended, he said, extended to be more mature, experienced lawmakers in the Senate than in the House. They serve 3 times longer than the House of Representatives. Remember, in the House of Representatives, they really only serve 2 years. Well, in the Senate they serve 6 years, so 3 times longer in the Senate. So they're less susceptible to local pressure of groups. So, groups influence, groups come and go, that. The senators being there in a longer period of time are less susceptible to be pressured by pressure groups, groups of people pressuring them. Each state only has 2 senators. So states are not by population. Regardless of population, even Alaska, less population, only has 2 senators, and California, New York, more populated, they have only 2 senators. Equal representative of the states. They're equal representation. Since the 17th Amendment, let's go on here. So here we go. Talking about since the 17th Amendment, 1913, senators are no longer chosen by the state. So now at large, they are voted in by voters. And this actually, as I said before, made a decline in state political power. But because the representative of each state, that may be a smaller influence than thought in the past. But so just remember that 17th Amendment had to do with the Senate, that we now elect our Senate by voting for them. Prior to this, we didn't do that. Just remember that. Pretty important. Congressional elections here. So all citizens 18 years old and older can vote for your senators and representatives. And basically, these elections are held in every state to those representatives. So, just basically, one of the amendments to the Constitution, prior to a certain time, 21-year-olds, but now 18-year-olds now can vote. So, Congress, Article 1, Section 4, establishes specific regulations, of the congressional elections. So when do we have these congressional elections? General election day and such. So, over the years, Congress has exercised its right to regulate federal elections. For example, Congress has made uniform the date on which all federal elections are held. And that day, what day is that? It's the Tuesday after the first Monday of November. So, like we always know, okay, it's November, it's general election day. It's going to be the Tuesday. It's always the Tuesday after the first Monday in November. It's kind of tricky, but that's the date. Okay, let's see. me go on with. Okay, the Constitution requires, let's go on to the Constitution. Kind of skipped around here. The Constitution requires that elected members of Congress meet 3 qualifications in voting. So, qualification is age, citizenship, and state residency. So, a member of the House must be at least 25 years old. These are the qualifications. Must be at least 25 years old and must be a citizen of the United States for 7 years, and also must be a resident of that state. So these are the qualifications. If you want to run for House of Representatives, you want to run in Congress, you have to be what? You have to be at least 25 years old, you have to be a citizen for at least 7 years, and then you have to be from the state that you're chosen, a resident of that state. Now, a senator has to be older, 30 years old. If you want to be a senator, you have to be 30 years old. You have to be a citizen for 9 years instead. And again, you have to be a resident chosen from that state. So basically, a little bit older for a senator, a little bit longer citizenship. So most people are citizens already, so we don't have to worry about that 7 years and 9 years, but you have to be a citizen of the United States for at least 9 years to be a senator and 7 years to be in the House of Representatives. It's kind of in the past been that the average congressman was probably a male, 50 years old, Protestant, has a college degree, background in law and business, maybe banking, all these things. But that's changed drastically today, and in Congress now has more women members than men, in I think in the House of Representatives. So we have, we have the changing of what Congress looks like. So here's a picture of Congress here. So let's talk about Congress leadership. So Congress leadership first is to make our nation's laws and to choose to lead Congress, basically. That's leadership, to make our laws. The Constitution leadership has 3 positions. So when you look at who are the leaders of Congress, number one, the first leader we have, and down here, leadership is the Speaker of the House. So the House of Representatives has a Speaker, and that Speaker has a lot of power. And that Speaker would be the head. And basically, we're going to talk more about all the power that person has. But basically, that's the leadership of the House of Representatives. And then as for the Senate has 2 positions. One position is the President of the Senate. And the President of the Senate is the Vice President of the United States. Even though the Vice President of the United States had little power in the Senate at this point, when it comes down to tie votes, on things, the Vice President has power. A Vice President who is the President of the Senate. So it's kind of confusing because it's the President of the Senate, but he's the Vice President of the United States. So also the President pro tempore is another. President pro tempore. So we're going to talk a little bit about these positions. So let's go first for the Speaker. We're going to talk about the Speaker of the House. Article 1, Section 2 talks about the Speaker of the House. And the Speaker of the House presides over the offices. The Speaker of the House is not required to be a House member, but always has been a House member. So has kind of always been a House member. The majority vote comes from the members of the House. So the Speaker of the House is always going to be the majority. It's going to be of the majority party. So more likely the Speaker will be of the majority party, as most members in the past have been. So basically, you say the Speaker of the House would be the majority party, the party with the most members in the House would be, and the Speaker, they would vote for that Speaker to be the Speaker of the House. Now we're going to talk more about that later, so I'm not going to get into that. So the Vice President of the United States shall be the President of the Senate. That's Article 1, Section 3. And the Vice President of the United States will preside over the Senate. It's pretty unusual that the Constitution office that spans both the legislative and executive branch is only the Vice President. So when you see Vice President belongs to the executive branch, but here he also belongs to the Congress and Senate. So really, if you have the question, which individual spans both the executive branch and the congressional branch and the legislative branch, you'd say it was the Vice President of the United States, due to Article 1, Section 3 of our Constitution. So let's go on to the next. I'm going to go over that picture later on too. I think it's pretty cool, but I'm going to have to turn it. And we're going to talk about the Capitol. I'm going to do that later too, because I'm actually going to the Capitol this week. So, okay. President, here we're talking about the Vice President and on to the President pro tempore. The President pro tempore of the tempore, I think how you pronounce it. I always say tempore, but it's tempore. So like temporary, right? So the President pro tempore is when the Vice President is absent from the Senate. Then the President pro tem, they call it short, pro tem, is in charge then. And the President pro tem is elected by fellow senators. That's how they choose the President pro tem. So you have two leaders. You have, first of all, you have the President, which is the Vice President of the Senate, right? Vice President is the President of the Senate, I should say, and then you have the President pro tempore, which is basically that person that's going to subside when the Vice President's gone. So it says, even though both the Speaker and the President of the Senate serve as presiding officers in their respective houses, they do not exercise equal influence over their chamber. So over the years, the House of Representatives has increased the Speaker's political power, but the Senate has not done the same. So the Speaker of the House exercises a lot of power. Let's just say that. As a member of the House, he can take part in debate and can vote like any other congressman. So he can also vote, he can debate, he can basically run, as picking committees. There's a whole lot of things that the Speaker of the House can do. So the Senate lacks these privileges, and really the President of the Senate can only vote when they're breaking a tie. So that goes on. Let's see, party leadership. So party leadership. Party affiliation still is the best prediction of how a person in Congress will vote, how a congressman will vote. So let's do that, because that'll be a test question, saying, how do we know how our congressmen shall vote? Well, we can find out what party they're from. Are they from the Democratic Party? Are they from the Republican Party? And then we can see how they will vote on issues. So again, the party affiliation, whether they're Democrats or Republicans or independent, is still the best prediction on how a congressman will vote on a particular issue. They will vote as their party votes. So in America, we have biparties. We're called bipartisanship. We actually have two parties. Our parties now are the Democratic and Republican Party, and now they're really naturally rivals to a lot. The majority party depends on which one, but the majority party means the most members in Congress of that party, and the minority party would be the fewest members. So you can always look through different sections of time in Congress, whether it was a majority or a minority for a certain party, like the Democratic majority in Congress, or Democratic majority in the House, and a Republican majority in the Senate. You can always look and see which party. The majority party has many advantages because it controls the debate on the floor. The majority leader also appoints floor and committee leaders. And so, and the majority when you have a majority, the majority of congressmen are in most of the committees. So a majority party in each house has a lot of power. So here's a picture of the congressional leadership. So go here. We have the on one side we have the president of the Senate. Underneath we have the president pro tempore, and on to the chaplain. And then underneath that they have the majority leader and the minority leader. And under the majority leader and the minority leader, we have a majority whip and a minority whip. And the Senate body has 100 members, 2 members from each state, 50 states. And then we have an office of secretary. So we see here in the House of Representatives, we see a Speaker of the House. We see also the chaplain there and the parliamentarian. But under the Speaker of the House has most of the power. And then we have a majority leader and a minority leader and a majority whip in them, just like we do in the Senate minority whip. And the House body has 435 members and a clerk. The clerk keeps track of things there too. So the floor leaders, let's talk a little bit more about those majority and minority leaders in their house. They're responsible to secure their party's interests. The majority leader has more power. The minority leader is recognized first in the debates, or the majority leader is recognized first in the debates. I said minority, but so the majority always comes first, and it influences the scheduling of debates and influences who gets into committees. In the Senate, the majority leader has more authority in the House and is most influential member on the floor in the Senate, here. So each floor leader has this party whip. And what does the whip do? You think, well, party whip, what is that? But the whip assists the majority and minority leaders, the whip. And what is the whip? Well, whip is English for fox hunt. So it meant whip her in, come on in, gather everybody in, to keep everybody in line, to keep the hunting dogs together in line, to keep the pack together, the hunting dogs, to urge the party members basically to come together, to vote in the party on key issues, to be informed party members on each position and on important issues. The whip is like keeping everybody informed, keeping everybody together, is informing the floor leaders how everybody else is voting. It's the whip looks into the committees and see how things are going, and comes back to the leader and tells them, the majority leader, and on to, especially to even in the House of Representatives, how things are going. So let's go on here. Here's some pictures. Here's a picture of a Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid and Speaker of the House John Boehmer. Those are 2 leaders there. So, okay, the floor leaders. We were talking about the whips here, so I'm not going to go over all this. Oh, caucus. Let's talk about the caucus now. So, the caucus is a private meeting of political party members to decide on policy or to choose party leaders. And they meet in a closed session before Congress meets, and usually in January, to make important decisions. So a party caucus meeting, you think, okay, so you say your party was a Democratic Party, and so you would want to have a caucus meeting before you even knew if you were majority or minority or whatever, but you'd have a leader to be able to vote on who possibly would be, your Speaker of the House. So a caucus leader would be that private meeting of your political party to decide on certain policies or to choose your leaders ahead of time. So you'll be ready, right? Those are caucuses. Committee leadership. So when we talk about committee leadership, congressional committees also provide leadership. So when you think of congressional leaders and stuff in these committees, the committees are where they decide what bills, and they have a bill, and the bill is proposed, it goes to the committee, and everybody, basically organize how the bill should go forth and if the bill should go forth. So these committees are so important. So congressional committees provide leadership also by their majority parties, The majority parties who will head their committees are chosen in the majority caucus. So you think if you have a majority leader and you have in your party caucus have chosen who's going to be, then you can also choose who's going to be in leading your committees, right? The chairman is politically influential because of the crafting of legislation takes place in the committee. So it's very important because they're crafting bills in the committee. So it's really good that you get your leadership in these committees, especially if you're a majority politically. To give a committee chair to a member with seniority is to give it to the member of the majority party who has had the most years of continuous service on that committee. So this is still the most common used for picking committee leaders, is that to see who has the most seniority, who's been around a long time, and who has the most experience in the past, and the continuous service, to look at their past. We call that seniority. That's for the congressional committee, for the main committee. So let's go on to there's other committees here too. So let's see. Let's go back to the seniority. Although seniority is a traditional method of selecting committee chairs and is not used as often as in earlier times, it's still the most often method influencing who receives committee chairman, the chairman. The minority party will employ the same ranking system. So you call this senior ranking. You call it, or basically call it ranking. This is the ranking system of their seniority. They go by seniority. So other types of committees. Let's look at those other types of committees. So we have the select committee. The select committee here is for investigations. We have the joint committees where members from both houses, from the Senate and the House of Representatives, meet in a single committee. That's why you call them joint committees. And then you have a conference committee, is basically a common type of joint committee that comes together where the different officers of both the House and the Senate come together for a conference. So those are just different types of committees. On to other officers. I'm going to go through this because I know we're getting long, but I'm going to go through this because I want to get through because it's just a lot of information, but you can look back at this information. So other officers, the House and the Senate choose certain officers who are not elected by the members of Congress. So basically, these are officers that are chosen, that they choose. Sergeant at Arms is the chief protocol in the law enforcement, Sergeant at Arms. So if House lacks quorum, compels the members to come together, the Sergeant at Arms, kind of brings things together at that point. Quorum means, quorum, when it says lacks quorum, means the compels the quorum, how should I say that? Quorum, actually, they don't have enough votes to make it. So something like that happens, it compels the members to come together, the Sergeant of Arms. Parliamentarian, let's go up here. A parliamentarian advises the House members on their parliamentary rules and their House rules. And they usually sit near the presiding officer to advise them on the parliamentarian rules that are happening. So the presiding officer always has to go by the parliamentarian rules, and so they got to have that guy. Chaplains minister spiritual needs of members and staff members and families and pray before the daily sessions in their house, in the House of Representatives or in the Senate. They also hold Bible studies and they conduct weddings and funerals. And then we have the secretary. The secretary is the clerk in the House, and this is their official record keeper, keeps records of everything said and done. In 1995, the chief administrative officer helped maintain operational infrastructure in the House, finance, payroll, child care, informational, and technology. So we have now in 1995 a new official called the Chief Administrative Officer, CAO. And this CIO has to do with what? You know, things like childcare and like payroll and informational technology, new technology. All these things are important. So all these things help in the midst of all. So I'm going to stop there, and we're going to go on in the next video.